And welcome back. Joining us for our first conversation is Attorney at Law Diana Shaw to talk to us about the amendments to the Criminal Code, cyberbullying, and of course she's the founder of the Child Development Foundation here in Belize, so she's going to talk to us a little bit about what she's doing with that foundation here. We're really glad to have you, Ms. Shaw. Welcome and good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much. Good morning. It's so good to be here, and welcome to the viewing audience. Good morning to you as well. As you mentioned, I am the founder of the Child Development Foundation, and this is an issue that actually we have been talking about a lot. Many schools have been calling us to do presentations with young people. We have had issues with nude pictures of underage girls being distributed, and some pictures that were taken by them and some pictures without their consent, and people are concerned about what this means and about what the law is. So hopefully we'll get to talk about that this morning and give some guidance to parents and to the public.
I think one of the first things people start to think about when they hear of videos circulating, pictures circulating, is what is the law today? And is the fact of social media preventing us from ever really getting ahead of this issue? What's your take on that?
All right, so social media has completely changed the platform as it relates to internet and electronic crimes. And we do have some legislation that deals with electronic crimes, but well, we are way behind on this issue because the focus has been more in preventing money laundering and trying to protect identity for the purpose of credit fraud and those kinds of things. When it comes to actual issues of sex tapes or nude pictures, this is a new area. Belize has some basic provisions in the criminal code. We do have a provision that deals with child pornography. So the actual making of a sex tape that involves children or depicts images of children is punishable as a crime. The distribution of it is a separate event. So when there's a sex tape, there are some things that the police look for. One, they want to see what's actually in it. Because if it's showing sexual activity against an underage person.
And for purposes of our law in Belize, what is considered underage?
All right, so the age of sexual consent is 16.
Okay.
So if somebody is making a sex tape with somebody who is 15 without any question about the distribution, that is a crime. It's unlawful sexual intercourse. So the sex tape becomes evidence of the unlawful sexual intercourse to prosecute the person that's involved in that sexual act. If the person is 16, then the issue of consent arises. Did the person consent to the sexual activity that's depicted in the tape? And consent can be vitiated or extinguished if there is use of drugs, force, threats in certain circumstances depending on the relationship between the people. So somebody who has a relationship of authority over children, who is a caregiver for a children's home, who has sex with somebody in the children's home, there's no consent even if the person is 16. So the police first look at that to see if there are actually sexual offenses such as rape or unlawful sexual intercourse that's actually being depicted. And then regardless of even if they consented to the distribution, that can still be actionable.
Can I ask you quickly though, what would be classified as sexual activity? Because in my mind, if it's on a sex tape and it's just sex, that shouldn't just be limited to what is punishable.
Yes, well, that's the first thing. So that's the first issue that the police always look at. If there's consent to the actual sexual activity, and that sexual activity, if it's intercourse, if there's no consent, it's rape, and if the person is under 16, it's unlawful sexual intercourse. But the law also punishes other forms of sexual activity with children. So even touching a child on the buttocks, the breasts, that's also actionable. That's a sexual assault. And even depicting putting you undressing and being naked in front of a child, that's also a criminal offense. So if the video is depicting that, the person who is doing that in the video can be charged. So that's the first issue, and that's usually where the police will usually focus because it's much easier to establish those things. There are other issues connected to if the person is over 16 and may have consented to the sexual activity and then this tape was made. So that's the second issue. Did they consent to the making of the tape? Because if they did not consent to the making of the tape, that also is criminal And if it's not criminal, it can be a civil action. You can sue the person to recover damages.
That sounds like you're getting into a very tricky area because
Yeah.
it's the he said, she said
Yes,
type of situation.
that's correct. And this is
Right.
why I said that secondary, usually the police want to focus on one that's clearer. Is there an actionable sexual offense that is being shown here where we can say that this person is not consenting because they look obviously drugged or their force is being used. This picture, this video, this tape is showing somebody being beaten or being raped. Then the police would probably not focus on the distribution. They're going to be focusing on the rape that's being depicted in the videotape. So that's the first thing.
Can I ask a question too? Because going back to that whole area of that issue of being tricky, where someone is inebriated, they're intoxicated, maybe they smoked a joint, whatever, and they consented at that time. But looking back retrospectively,
No. The law is clear.
Okay.
If drugs are introduced, even if you agree, that's not legal consent.
Okay.
So if somebody gives you alcohol to drink and then has sex with you and you introduce in court evidence that you were given alcohol and there's proof of that because the tape is showing alcohol and you drinking it, the court can say that that use of alcohol erodes your consent. So even
Okay.
if you agree, that would not legally be recognized as consent.
Okay.
Got it.
So
How common is it in Belize for prosecution in any of these situations, whether it's a minor, whether it's an issue of consent, whether it's an issue of distribution? Do we have a track record?
all right, so we are increasing the prosecution of sexual offenses. So rape and lawful sexual intercourse. You will have been hearing on the news. This is something that's very much in the public forefront. The DPP has increased the prosecution of these offenses. So that part of it, yes. Where there has been less emphasis because the laws are not fully caught up with it is the actual issue of the distribution of a sex tape where people are consenting to the sexual activity in the sex tape. So if the persons are over 16 and there are two issues. They may be over 16 but still under 18. And they may consent to the sexual activity. Now, if they're under 18, the question becomes, can they consent to making the sex tape and distributing it? The answer is no, because we have child pornography laws. And the child pornography laws extend until you're 18.
That's important to remember.
So
then.
somebody who is 16 can consent to sexual activity, but they can't consent to make sex tapes and distribute it because the law does not allow that. So that issue now becomes actionable if somebody else is making the tape and then distributing it, whether the person in it has consented to the distribution or not. The person who is distributing it, whether it's on social media, they're making a video and selling the video, or they're taking a picture and sharing the picture, this DPP can decide that they should be charged.
Even if that person is underage as well.
It depends on how old they are because the age of criminal responsibility is 12. So if they're over 12, then yes, the DPP can decide that this person should be charged. In most cases though, if it involves underage persons who are close in age, usually the criminal intent is not there, or maybe minimal because they may not have actually thought about doing this
And the repercussions.
and the repercussions, the malicious intent may not be there. So in some of those cases, the DPP may refer this to human services for human services to do intervention with both persons. And there may be other consequences where the school may impose disciplinary measures. There is a move now in the Caribbean, though, that even in those cases, some laws are being reformed to allow for juvenile justice proceedings to be brought so that the person will probably be charged with a lesser summary offense, a lesser offense, and then maybe a community service order is imposed or a probation order so that there is accountability, that they understand that this is wrong and it has legal consequences. But once the person jumps 18, of course, it becomes much more serious. An adult person who makes a sex tape that involves a child, that's going to be child pornography, and they will definitely be charged. And if there are other things, for instance, they are selling it, that can even be trafficking. If they are selling the tape, that they are making money from it, so that can then amount to trafficking or commercial sexual exploitation of children. The trickier issue is where it's two adults, where it's 18 to the person is 18 and over, and they make a sex tape or allow a nude photograph to be taken, or you take, as is usually the case, the woman takes a nude photograph and sends it to a boy or a man that she's involved in, and then he distributes it. What does the law say about that? Well, the whole issue is about consent. In Belize, this is where the law is far behind. We need to do a lot to update the law. in Jamaica, they have passed legislation that deals specifically with child pornography and distributing pictures of persons and so on. But here, our privacy laws, we have a privacy clause in the Constitution, but we don't have an actual Privacy Act that sets out how privacy is to be protected and the extent of the protection. So it becomes a little bit tricky. But there is some guidance at common law. So if you take a selfie and you take a picture, that's your picture. Yeah. So whether it's a nude picture or not is irrelevant. You have ownership of it. So of course, copyright attaches immediately. If you send it to somebody for their private use and you do not intend for them to distribute it to the world, you have not given them permission to do so. So in the civil law, you may have remedies for copyright infringement, and there actually have been some cases in the US and in Europe where they are doing this. And this has probably been one of the more effective ways of trying to address it, because the copyright extends beyond just the person who you send it to. Somebody, for instance, who posts it on their webpage or allows it to be put up on their site may also be guilty of the copyright infringement. And they have used that in Europe to force even Facebook to take down nude pictures that were posted onto Facebook. So this is where the world is going, and the legislation will shortly catch up, because this is becoming so prevalent. At first, the judges were very reluctant to even recognize that, okay, look here, if you take the picture, it's your problem. But now, because that's become so prevalent, there's no greater recognition that, okay, if somebody's taking a nude picture, they're probably doing this in an intimate space where they're expecting that the other person who it is given to is going to respect their rights to it and how it is being shared. So if the person breaches that, there is no consent to them to do something else with it beyond that. So then we have to investigate what remedy the person may have against that person. And this actually also came out of some cases in the US and California, in divorce proceedings, where somebody was getting divorced and there was they're challenging custody, and they suddenly produce a sex tape. Oh, well, she's an unfit mother because we made a sex tape in 1999 and this was what she was doing in the sex tape. She should not have my children. Or she made some sex tape with her boyfriend or some other person and she should not have my children. And now the courts are saying, okay, no, that we don't allow that. We're not going to allow you to do that. And she may actually have a claim against you. So now there's more recognition of that. So this is helpful for us, because it will eventually extend to other countries.
Okay. Sorry, I'm new at this. So I want to go back to what some of the next steps are in legislation, but I first wanted to talk a bit more on the personal level. Yes. When you speak to victims who have find themselves they look on Facebook and that picture is there, or that party they went to that they don't have a memory of is there, especially people who are children.
Yes.
And then maybe even from the perspective of, oh, I didn't know what I was doing was wrong, the perpetrators, what kinds of things do you hear in terms of victims as well as people who are guilty of a crime and they claim ignorance?
Ignorance, all right. So with regards to children, and usually it's teenagers, the first thing that we would normally say, one, to the child, because we do presentations in schools, you need to take a screenshot. You need to save the evidence of what has been done, because usually once you start making noise about it, people go back and delete stuff and take it down. And though you can never ever permanently delete anything from Facebook, nothing goes away from the internet forever. It may remove the thing immediately. So for the short term. So usually we tell them first take a screenshot, and then if it's an underage person, you need to alert your parents. Don't try to do this on your own, because usually when you try to do that, the person realizes, oh, this upset you, and okay, I'm going to post something else, or I'm going to I'm going to put it on, Stop Bav or some website where people will comment and say a lot of nasty things about you. So get your parents involved so that they can address it. And then we say to parents, don't go after the other child with a 2x4 or a metal pipe that you went to beat this other boy because he put a picture of
your own child.
Or your own child, yes. Don't do that. First, contact the parent of the other child, but make sure you have the screenshot, the evidence. Yeah. This is what your child is posting about my child. I want you to know I'm going to report this to the police, and I'm going to seek legal advice and what legal remedies my child and myself will have. But I want for you to know what your child is doing, because you need to tell him that he needs to take this down. And sometimes you will say even follow that up with a letter, because later on, if you intend to take a civil action, it's important to show that you notified the person. So send a letter to tell them they need to take that down. You're not consenting to that, so that you have that record. Contact the police so that you make a report about the situation, and that is speak to your child, but probably before you go to the police, speak to your child who was is being depicted, find out what circumstances in which this video or this photograph was taken. Did she make the video? Did she take the photograph? What was happening? Because then you need to determine whether another crime was committed against your child, so that you have all that information to share with the police.
Does Belize have a unit that deals with this type of crime, or is it best simply to go to your district? Who do people go to?
Well, it depends on where you are, because we do have a domestic violence unit, and they have dealt with some of this. They are more going to be focused on whether there was a rape or unlawful sexual intercourse. But we do also have a unit within the police that deals with cyber crimes, and a lot of people don't know this. As it is, most of their focus has really been on helping with fighting counterterrorism, to track emails and social media posts. If the U.S. requests assistance or about somebody that they are investigating that may have contacts with Belize, those kinds of things. But they do have equipment and they have been trained. And so there is a unit that could be used to do that. I don't know if they have ever been involved in any of this, but they certainly have the capabilities that they could do that. They could check the IP address to find out where the person is. In addition, beyond just the IP address, if the photo was uploaded from a smartphone, it usually stores the location that will lead you back to the person who is doing it, even if they're not using their proper name on the social media site. And even if they don't have the location icon on, they can still track the location, especially if it's an Apple phone or a Samsung phone. Even if location is disabled, it's always connected to the satellite. So Apple can give you that information. And if the police request it, they will give it. So there's almost always a way to find the person who is actually doing it. But it will take some time and some equipment. But that's why you report it to the police, so that can be done.
I wanted to get into even muddier waters. In the instance where it's being shared, not on social media, you know how people have WhatsApp groups, or they have groups among themselves, and maybe it's a group of guy friends, and they're like, oh, look at what my girlfriend sent me. What are the ramifications for something like that in that instance? So
we have actually talked to boys about that as well. That's also can be a legal issue. Of course, it depends on if somebody alerts the girl and notifies her that this is happening, for her to take action, because usually you won't be able to take action unless you know that it's happening. But certainly if she has not consented to it being distributed, she at least has civil remedies, and there may be criminal remedies, again, depending on what is being depicted and how it was being shared, because we do have criminal libel, and that's criminal libel, and we have civil libel. Now, I know journalists don't really like libel laws, but this is one area where it's good. Because the criminal libel, it's once malicious intent is proved, and that can be established if the person makes a comment on the photograph. Look at this slut and what she's doing. That's malicious intent. So that will establish libel. So in the US, a lot of these actually have been prosecuted under libel cases, and that has been successful. There is a more of, especially with persons who may be just 18, there is a move to do that more instead of prosecuting as a sexual offense, because in the US they automatically get placed on the sexual offenses registry, and then that will be for life. And we have had cases where that has happened to underage boys, 17-year-old boys who circulated nude pictures of girls or a sex tape, and the girl prosecuted it, and they were labeled as a sex offender. And so there is a move amongst prosecutors in the US that they should more treat it as libel instead of bringing sexual offense charges, because of the consequences. And the person, when they distribute it, may not have been thinking about that. But certainly in Belize, we also have a sexual offenses registry. There's provision for it in the criminal code. I don't think we have appointed a registrar yet, so it's not fully functioning. But certainly once you are convicted of that, the conviction is there, and eventually when there is a registry being formed, your name is going to be on the sexual offenses registry. So people need to be careful, because there are legal consequences. And aside from that, just the person who is making it. So this is the other part of the conversation. Because this is becoming so prevalent, a lot of people think it's okay. And so you have girls that are making nude videos, taking pictures of themselves, and they are distributing it thinking, well, this is not going to be anything, so. No, it's actually a big issue.
Yeah.
There are consequences afterwards, and so I don't know if we want us to get into that now. Or,
I would.
Okay.
I think that this is just one more thing that parents have
know.
to keep up on.
Yes.
If, for example, they suspect something is happening either with their child or they just know something is wrong, where would you be able to consult them, you personally, through your organization? Where should they go for more information?
All right, so we do some, and we have given, there are quite a number of people that have called me, and I've given them some guidance about what to do. I would say there is a need to train the police more to understand what they need to ask for and what they can do, because sometimes we will refer people to police and they will come back and they will say, oh, but the police don't even understand what they are supposed to be doing, and they're telling me that they can't do anything, when you are saying that there is child pornography laws. Or there are some limitations on what the police can do, but they do need to be trained more to understand what they can do. And that's something that we are going to be doing. We are hoping to do some training this year on this.
Good.
I am involved and the consultant on a project with the Caribbean Court of Justice to develop model guidelines for the courts on sexual offenses. And we are focusing a lot on understanding vulnerable witnesses, but this is one of the areas that I do want to create a special focus on, because we do have some countries like Jamaica that now have legislation that affects this. So that will be something that will spark the conversation for the countries then to consider what else needs to be done to strengthen the protective mechanisms for persons as it regards to police investigative techniques, as well as the laws on this.
Tell us, let's go back to what you mentioned about consequences, because even before the age of social media, we as teens did things that had consequences that we would never have known, except that our parents probably told us ahead of time and we ignored that, right?
Yes.
So today, add social media to that, and the internet and smartphones. What are some of the consequences that a young person, either a victim or someone who's involved, may not think about?
Yes. So the first thing we remind young girls, one, everything on the internet is forever. I mean, even, and you should delete the page or the picture, but even if you do that, it's not completely gone from the internet. Facebook itself will actually have to take it down, and there have only been a few cases worldwide where the court has forced them to do that. And usually that has involved celebrities, not necessarily other
people. And again,
people.
people can screen grab, like you said, on
and
both
share
sides,
that.
and share it, right?
But Facebook can scrub it. But what I'm saying, that rarely ever happens. There have only been a few cases where that has happened. So for the person, the young person, it's important to note that it is forever. Two, social media is not considered to be protected by privacy laws. So there's nothing that is on social media that you can say, well, I just put it up for myself, and nobody else can use it. I never give them permission. No, that's not true. So if you put it on social media, it means that somebody that you are applying for a job from can check social media, and the law allows them to do that, and determine if there is anything on it that may be considered indecent or obscene or even political in relation to you, and on that basis they can refuse to hire you. Or if you're already employed, they can fire you. The law allows them to do that, because it's not even your email. Your employer can hack into your email and see if you are posting nude pictures or sending nude pictures, and on that basis fire you. And the law fully allows them to do that. So people need to be careful of that. Don't think that because everybody is doing this, that this is suddenly accepted by the law and it's okay. It is not. The law does not accept this. So don't do that. That's the first thing. Don't take nude pictures of yourself and send to anybody, and don't make sex tapes, because you don't know, once you have done that, you have no control over it afterwards. You don't know what the other person will do with it. And while there may be some legal remedies, one, the process of getting that remedy is long and expensive. And two, it will never ever fully erode or eradicate what has already happened in terms of the damage to your reputation, and even the loss of a job or the loss of other relationships that have happened because of this. So that's the first rule of thumb. Don't make nude pictures. Don't send them to people. For parents, they need to have this conversation with their children, to let them know this is not something that's innocent or something because all their friends are doing it. We had a discussion group with some young girls in a high school where we were asking, because this was becoming so prevalent, why are girls suddenly doing this? What's the push behind it? Yeah. Some of it is peer pressure and social media, and even cyberbullying, which is a separate issue, because if they post a picture in order to, defame you or ruin your reputation, that becomes bullying. But a lot of it was driven by girls were saying things like, well, I really like this guy and I really want him to notice me and to know that I'm really serious. And when you send him a naked picture, he says, well, wow, she really serious. She is ready for something serious. No. There have to be some other way that you're going to communicate to this guy that you really like him. Sending him a naked picture is not the way.
That's right.
And I think it's an issue that parents have dealt with over time. When girls and boys are getting to that point of liking each other, how do you get that attention?
Yes.
We're going to have to wrap up here,
Yes.
but I did want to mention, in your mind, the next step in our legislation, what has to happen?
Okay, so we need specific laws dealing with cyber crimes that involve cyberbullying, cyberstalking, distribution of pornography, and that also protect the privacy of photographs and other images that are made. We want to say to parents, if this is something that is happening to your child, have a conversation with the child, find out exactly what has happened. Get legal advice from the Legal Aid Center, from an attorney about what you can do. Speak to the police. There may be criminal charges that may be brought. And even if there aren't criminal charges, there are certainly civil remedies that you can always bring to sue to recover damages. If it's an issue where you need further information or a child needs counseling, you can contact us at CDF, the Child Development Foundation. We have an office here in Belize City. The number to call for Belize City is 203-1111. We have an office in Belmopan, and the number to call there is 615-7010. We are also on the internet. We have a website, cdfbelize.com, and we are on Facebook, CDF Belize. You can message us, or you can follow our Facebook posts and see what's happening with this. So we'll be doing some more work on this issue in schools this year and follow what we're doing.
And this is also for persons who would want to be involved in the
Yes,
foundation?
definitely. You can
Excellent.
contact us by any of these means.
Diana Shaw, thank you so much. This is a real eye-opener, like our show aims to do every day for people. At least people can start that conversation.
Yes.
When we come back, we are going to go into a different aspect of this issue. A young man who's been the victim of cyberbullying. He's now a youth ambassador for CARICOM. And we're going to get that younger person's perspective as well, because I think that that's where a lot of that communication between parent and child needs to be clarified. So.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Diana.
Thank you so
for all the
much.
work that
Enjoy
you're
it.
doing as well. We'll
Thank
be
you.
back.